And then the other thing that we've talked about in the past is if you can just relay a little bit about why it's so important for business to engage in this, and why it's so important for them even economically, because we've talked about that in the past as well.
So the statistics pre-COVID are that 1 in 4 people will have a mental health issue every year. Now that's an issue, not an illness. So that could be a divorce, a bereavement, a house move. It might be that you're worrying about your teenager sitting their exams, but they have an impact on your mental health that with the right care and support, you'll come out the other side with no long-term damage. A bit like, you know, if you break your arm, as long as you get the right treatment for it, or you pull a muscle in your back, you know, it'll bother you for a bit, but you'll come out the other side. And that's 1 in 4 people. But the estimates say that every time as an employer you have somebody going through a mental health issue without that support, it will cost your business £1,300 a year. It doesn't take long for that to add up and really have an impact on your bottom line, you know. But you could do a course with me for a lot less than that and save yourself some money.
Oh yeah, quite a bit. Well, it's not just, and saving the money is one thing, but it's also the due care and attention that you afford your employees. And not only that, as you and I both know, it also, you carry this into the home as well, because it's also taking care of your family, your loved ones, your friends, everything around you, because you understand how it all works and everything.
Well, actually, that's the current campaign from MHFA England called My Whole Self, which is the fact that you should be able to take your whole self from home to work and back to home again, and it should be, all of it should be a safe space for somebody. So there's that. But I think the other thing as well is a lot of employers don't often understand where they sit with the law with these things, because actually under the Health and Safety at Work Act, you have a duty of care to assess for risks and hazards, and that does include mental health. Most employers don't really understand the management standards for work-related stress, but actually you're required to do a risk assessment every 12 months. If you've got more than 7 staff, you have to do risk assessments, and that does include for work-related stress. HSE have got a brilliant talking toolkit that really helps with that as well. And then of course you've got the Equalities Act. And again, most people don't, they hear it, but they don't understand what it means. So disability is one of the protected characteristics under that. But if you've got a mental health illness that has lasted or will last more than 12 months, you become protected by the Equalities Act, which means you're then entitled to reasonable adjustments. And that sounds really scary, but actually some really simple steps can be put in place.
Things,
some really, really simple things. So maybe you're somebody whose anxiety gets triggered by the rush hour. Well, your employer could maybe look at staggering your start and finish time so that that doesn't impact you anymore. Could actually work better for the business to be able to have somebody in a bit earlier or somebody in a bit later, so you can also have longer opening times.
Having them 100% available to work as well. I mean,
so there's all of that, you know, and so it's not scary. It just needs unpicking a bit. And mental health illness, psycho, schizo, they're going to stab us in the back in the middle of the night. You know, that's what people think, but it's not the case. No. It's not the case. People, even with the most severe mental health illnesses, like psychosis, schizophrenia, etc., are far, far more likely to be the victims of violent crime than they ever are the perpetrators. It's just that it doesn't sell good press to talk about that.
I mean, we talked earlier about, and I'm not sure how many people are aware of it, but presenteeism itself. If you explain a little bit about presenteeism and the cost of that.
Well, presenteeism is where, particularly if you maybe are only going to get SSP if you go off sick and you can't pay your bills on that, or you've got a punitive sickness health policy where if you're off more than X number of occasions in a year or off more than X number of days in a year, they can start triggering, you know, written warnings and verbal warnings and all of that. So people get scared of that. So rather than admitting that they're not in a good place and they shouldn't be at work, they need some time to do some self-care, they go in. And the problem with that is, if you were employing me and I phoned you up on a Monday morning and went, Brock, really sorry, got a terrible migraine, I can't make those events today. You'd scramble, you'd get somebody else to go there and replace me. A few little glitches along the way, but someone would be there representing your brand, doing all the right things. But if it was because actually I'd woken up on a Monday morning and my depression had triggered, But I was scared that, Brock, bad, evil boss is going to sack me if I take another day off. So instead I go. But I'm lacklustre and I'm not on form and I don't represent your brand very well. And maybe I missed a key thing that, needed to be done because I'm just not all there that day. That has a significant impact because you won't be aware of it until after the event. Deadline gets missed, a project doesn't get completed, a client's unhappy, leaves, goes somewhere else. And that has a big, big cost because then your brand's getting damaged as well. And
it costs more than not even making the appointment to begin with, depending on what it is.
Yeah, exactly. And they estimate that costs 3 times as much as sickness absence.
Wow.
So if you put in perspective that they say that mental health absence costs businesses in the UK between 33 and 42 billion pounds. You can treble that for presenteeism.
Yeah. Crazy. It's crazy. I mean, we were saying earlier that basically it cost you, well, remember I said what we talked about earlier is the £1 and £5 episode.
Yeah.
So for every £1 that I spend on this, I get £5 in return by doing those statistics. So I don't know how many of us wouldn't sit there and trade £1 coin for £5 notes all day long. So
well, exactly.
it's the same scenario.
And that's not MHFA statistics. Yeah. That's so this initially started with the Stevenson Farmer Review, which was the government white paper a few years back. But then earlier this year, Deloitte, big blue chip company, they researched this, and their statistics, which were only released in January of this year, their statistics say that for every £1 you invest in quality mental health training, because obviously a lot of people are jumping on the bandwagon now, but every time you invest £1 in mental health training, you'll get £5 back in terms of increased productivity, reduced staff absenteeism, staff retention, better customer service, etc., etc. I don't know of anything else that you could invest £1 in where a company like Deloitte will tell you you'll get £5 back. And FTSE 100 performance, if you look at their performance, there's also a lot of evidence that shows that companies that talk about investing in mental health and well-being in their reports and accounts, that have published policies and ways of dealing with this, their shares perform better because people want to invest in them for ethical reasons.
It's an investment. It's an investment in your business and in the person. And that's the thing that I always say all the time is, we will go and pay that maintenance fee to keep a machine running. We'll go and pay that, get your car, all these sort of things. But you have to invest in your people. And your people are your most invaluable tool that you have in your entire business.